scarcity will also be one of the topics that will be discussed at our next panel on the supply chain. And be aware that after that panel, you'll be able to ask Q&A, so you can actually scan the barcode, the QR code, and ask your questions online, and we'll be putting them to the members of the panel, the participants. Can I ask Nicolas Bourgeois, Erik Bertholet, Adriano Tutello, and Dominika Taranko to join me on stage? Hello. I'm going to say. Bonjour, monsieur. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Let's shake hands then. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here again. And we are connected to François Lambert, I understand. Are we? Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning to all.
Thank you for tuning in. So now you're the managing director of French Maritime Academy, ENSM. France has finally commissioned its first offshore wind farms, and that is also having an impact where you are on your academy, right?
Yes, hello to all. And of course, our students are interested in the subject. Visits have been organized and have helped to increase students' interest in the subject of marine engineering, more specifically in the offshore maintenance deployment, because we have a special pathway on that. And in France, we are starting to see the fruits of wind farm deployment. But it's also for our sailing students. They are interested also. It's not only marine engineers in our schools. Seafarers also want to find meaning in their careers and the opportunity to contribute to the energy transition. I run the school, which was originally the merchant navy school only, and it trains merchant navy officers who sail all over the world. But the image of the officer who spends the whole year on board a ship or on the other side of the world continues to exist. But you have some other careers. If you take, for example, Louis Dreyfus Armateur crew transfer vessels example, today, these ships are highly prized by our students for their complex dynamic positioning work, technical and demanding professions that's perhaps a little more compatible with both societal aspirations and family and personal life.
So students are more interested in offshore renewables, you're saying. What are you doing to meet that interest? Are you creating new programs? How are you going about this?
I told you last year about Global Wind Organization, and I'm not here today, but I don't know what the industry players are doing in Nantes. They should all be in Saint-Malo at this center for training and working the height. I'm joking, but I'd like to invite you to go and meet our head of continuing education, Orlan Siwick, and Grégory Colomer, who runs the centers. They are here in Nantes, and not like me. Again, I'm sorry. The curiosity and interest of certain players has led them to place their trust in us. I'm thinking, of course, of Brittany Region and the town of Saint-Malo, which contributed to the financing of GWO. But I'm also thinking on private players. Last year, we signed a partnership with Maritime and Iberdrola, and we need to pursue and to step up our training sessions. It's an essential moment. I was listening our Danish colleague before. I believe for our democracy, it's a special moment. At last we have renewable energies. At last they are here, and at last the training structure exists. But no, we have to stay the course that of the Balfour speech, 40 gigawatt, and that is an ambition for a truly integrated maritime policy.
Well, I understand you're also creating a new planning module for maritime spatial planning. Why is that so important, especially here in France?
I was talking about this integrated maritime policy. That's what it's all about. It's the opportunity to move forward towards new challenges and to do so through training. We have a contract now with some objectives since last year. We signed it with the Minister Hervé Berville, and it provides us to work on the construction of a national higher maritime institute. The idea of a maritime academy is probably a thing of the past. The idea of a new network of maritime establishments remains to be imagined. It's a form of incubator for both initial and continuing training, which would finally give maritime public policy in its civilian dimension a unity in terms of training. So merchant navy, of course, maritime administration, crew and recruiting, maritime engineering, river navigation, port logistics, and of course spatial planning. And we look forward to present this structure to you in about 2 years, which is a big challenge for us.
Well, thank you so much, François Lambert, for tuning in. I understand you have to go
Thank you,
now
Lisa.
and go to Le Havre. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. By the way, you're allowed to ask questions. After this, there's a Q&A session, so feel free to connect to the QR code in the program and ask your questions. Now, some of these upcoming offshore talents could work at your company in the future, Nicolas Bourgeois. Your offshore wind initiatives coordinator at Italy-based Plenitude. In a nutshell, what offshore wind projects are you involved right now, especially in Europe?
So thank you for having me. Thank you for having me today. First, Plenitude has worked hard over the last years to build a sizable portfolio of projects, balance between fixed projects and floating wind projects, and also across Northern Europe and also in the Mediterranean area. So just to mention a few projects, we are on a fixed project. We are in particular partners on the Dogger Bank project, which is currently in its phase of commissioning, and it's basically the largest offshore wind farm in the world, with a first phase of 1.2 gigawatts that is currently in course of commissioning, and 2 other phases of 1.2 gigawatts that will be commissioned in the next period. And on the floating projects, we have, for example, the project Greenvolt in Scotland, which is a floating project of a bit more than 500 megawatts. And in Italy, in offshore Sicily, we have the Seven Seas Med project, which is 250 megawatts, about 30 kilometers offshore from the Sicily coast. These 2 floating projects have the particularity of having both reached the obtention of environmental permits. So indeed, we are quite confident that this project could be among the first, if not the first, to come out of the water. So that's an exciting perspective for us. Yeah.
So the topic of this panel is obviously the supply chain in the time of raw materials, scarcity and cost pressure. What kind of bottlenecks, what kind of hurdles are you having to face?
Okay, first, the fixed projects and floating projects have pretty different configurations and constraints. So today, I would focus on the floating wind because first, it's an important part of our portfolio. It's also, let's say, a significant opportunity of growth for Southern European countries such as France, Italy, or Spain. And also, it's a pretty exciting challenge to kick off this supply chain, and this first project will be clearly a pace setter for the supply chain. So A first topic that comes to mind, and I will be very brief because probably other panelists are better qualified than I am on this matter, it's the ports. Clearly, the port infrastructure for floating wind projects are a cornerstone. Without ports, there won't be projects in these areas. And on this matter, I would just say that, for example, our domestic market, Italy, is having the same approach as France, with a call of manifestation for interest to the ports that would like to be part of this floating wind challenge. Then there is the turbines. The turbines indeed are a very challenging aspect of the floating wind market. The turbine suppliers, they currently have a significant backlog of order and a consistent market coming from the fixed projects, the bottom fixed projects. And most of them have not really fully tackled the floating wind market as of today. So we need to make it an attractive market for them. The first way to do that is through let's say a proper regulation of auctions. That is to say, having a proper maritime spatial planning, and also a proper scheduling of the future auctions, so that these suppliers of turbines have consistent volumes ahead of them. That makes it an appealing market. With consistent volumes, but also reasonable objectives. And I guess this is happening as of today in France or in other countries. So clearly, this is a milestone to allow these suppliers to tackle the floating wind project. A second important aspect for the turbines is to not to put these turbine suppliers under too much pressure, I believe, by asking them not consolidated technologies. For example, on the Seaports project in Sicily, we are currently evaluating 15 megawatt turbines because we believe that is the technology that will be robust over the next period. We may evaluate larger turbines for the next projects in a longer timeline, but that's what we are focusing on as of today. And also the regulators, the authorities have a role to play in this by not incentivizing too much the growth of the size of the turbines in order to allow the market to settle a little bit. And then the floaters. The floaters is another important aspect of the supply chain. So there is not much you can do about the cost of steel. It is what it is. So as Plenitude, one approach that we have is that we do not only evaluate the floaters from a weight versus power perspective, but also from a constructability. We have to give, let's say, a clear sign of the robustness of our projects by showing that these floaters are fabricable. And probably, I think that all the actors that have, let's say, an industrial legacy from the oil and gas industry, like us, have probably some added value on this particular aspect of the proper industrialization and standardization of fabrication of the floaters. So that's the first aspect. And the second aspect on the floater is that I believe that there was recently a study from the firm Wood Mackenzie that showed that there are about 150 patents about floaters. And this is huge. So as of today, the hope is probably that this also will settle and that a few technology champions will emerge from this. And this will avoid all the actors, such as developers, EPC contractors, or turbine suppliers, to develop always ad hoc solutions for the products. So yeah, in order to wrap this up, I'd like to say that we also are not always targeting the minimum price that we can achieve, but the correct price that we should achieve. Because in order to kick off this industry and to have a robust supply chain, we need to demonstrate to the authorities, to the stakeholders, to the shareholders and investors that the projects has been properly evaluated. They lie on sound economics with a robust technology assessment, a robust execution plan, and basically that they are robust projects. So if this is achieved, probably the supply chain will kick off and will be in good health.
Thank you so much, Nicolas Bourgeois from Italy's Plenitude. You mentioned that one of the bottlenecks are ports. Erik Bertholet, we have you with us. You're business manager offshore wind at Groningen Ports Eemshaven. Thank you for coming all the way to join us here. Is your microphone working?
I don't know if...
Yeah, it is.
It's working.
So, in your harbour, in the past, there have been built 19 bottom-fixed offshore wind farms. Another 3 projects are currently being accommodated. What does your harbour do to bring these projects' costs down?
Oh, of course, play a role in the supply chain. And the supply chain is pretty complicated. We are running 3 projects at the moment. Gode Wind 3, Borkum Riffgrund 3, that's an Ørsted project, which is, the foundations are installed over Eemshaven. 107 turbines, the biggest German wind farm so far. The components are coming from various destinations, and things come too early, too late, not at all. So you need a lot of buffering. You need a lot of territory in order to optimize the supply chain, and you have an installation vessel. In this case, also the newest installation vessel of Jan de Nul, the Les Alizés, doing its first project. It's a huge vessel which can take 5 turbines, foundations at one time. It's a floater, not a jackup, so that's also different. And then installing, let's say, in the winter period, in bad weather conditions, well, that's good for the port because the vessel is coming in and out, but it's sub-optimizing in the supply chain to install in the right time. But we have approximately, I think, a laydown area of 20 hectares only to have the materials, which is, in this case, monopiles and secondary steel available in the port area. And everything is barged to the port because we are not a production port. The other project which is running is not from Ørsted, but Energie Bad Württemberg, that's He-Dried. That's also a German wind farm. We are, as Eemshaven, very close to Germany, so we work a lot for German wind farms. And again, the foundations, but this makes it other complicated because the monopiles, in this case, were coming from northern Germany. And the transition pieces, this one with transition pieces, is coming from Newcastle, from Smulders. So, and that's all barged, 6 transition pieces on a barge to the port. Well, you can imagine weather windows are complicated and you need a lot of territory, not on the side, but also on the quay side. And if vessels come at the same time, you need sufficient load out and load in areas, and things get heavier, so you also need heavy load quays. So it's complicated, and the vessels getting bigger, the materials getting bigger, and that means less and less suitable ports.
I understand you've got special strategies to deal with that. You mentioned that you have a load in that's separated from the load out. You're also working with the supply chain in a certain way. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, in order to meet up to these logistical complications, we in Eemshaven are lucky. We have 4 different basins, and now we used Beatrixhaven only for load-ins. There's a 30 tons per square meter heavy load quay, and there's near kai jacking possible. So all the materials are coming in there, and the load outs are in another basin in the Julianahaven. And we're now investing in a second load out area, so we have 2 heavy load out areas, so you can have then 2 wind farm installations at the same time and not interfering the load ins. But yeah, then you must have multiple basins, you must have multiple quays, you must have multiple cranes, multiple axle SMPTs, vehicles to move things. So there's a lot coming to it.
And you also directly talk to developers, right? Is that right? Why is it important to talk directly to developers, as you told me before?
Yeah, there's a change coming because every project, we used to work per project. We did 19 projects and then we made agreements with, let's say you have the developers and the developers, they choose an OEM and the OEM chooses a shipping company. And then we were talking to the shipping companies. And it's project only, so you bring in, you commission a project area, and after the project you decommission a project area. And that means that's costing a lot of money. So if you can do a project portfolio, let's say more projects, you can leave that over there. You can leave the cranes, you can leave the offices, you can leave all the staff which is there. And there's a tendency now that developers are choosing ports for, let's say, more than one project. And that helps in the supply chain. And you see it's all over the supply chain. For instance, Vattenfall, this one, they've made an agreement with TKF, a cable producer in our port. That's a coincidence, but that was because they secured their array cables for more projects. Other thing what you see is that RWE has secured the Jan de Nul vessels for upcoming projects. Now, and the same goes now that also for ports, they secure more projects in one port.
Thank you very much, Erik Bertholet. With us is also Adriano Tutello. You are Technical Director at French asset management company Mirova. And you told me in advance that when deciding if to invest in a project or not, the price is not the only criteria. It's not always about what's the cheapest, right?
Yeah, first of all, thank you to be there. And yeah, indeed. We are not only looking for the cheapest project as possible. As mentioned by Nicolas, I think there we are looking also for a global aspect of the project. There is not only the price. There is all the risk embarked on the project. There is the technical risk. There is the environmental risk. Before to enter on a project, we spent a lot of time in due diligence. I will not detail all the aspects, but on the technical, we are looking also, especially for the tier one supplier in order to be sure all the technology chosen are suitable for the project. And especially we are looking for proven technologies in order to minimize the risk of the project. And regarding the environmental aspects, we are a sustainable investor. So definitely that is one of the key aspects of the project. We would like to be the best in class on this aspect. So we are looking for every single details in order to minimize the impact, the negative environmental impact of the project. That is, all in all, that is not bringing to the lowest cost of the project, but as mentioned by Nicolas, the suitable cost for the project from an environmental point of view, for the financial point of view, also for the end user, for the customers, and also for the supply chain.
I suppose that with inflation on the rise over the past few years, that equation has somehow changed.
Yeah, indeed, we face a peak of inflation last couple of years, and that brings a difficult equation to solve. All the projects are not anymore suitable for investing, to be invested. So we are looking for the best project in order to minimize the risk and to also how I can say that. We are looking for opportunities with the consortium in order with the proper assumption for the project. We are not looking for as I mentioned, the cheapest price, but for the most adequate price. We are not looking for the most, as I mentioned, we are looking for an adequate price. So we are looking for the proven technologies, and so we are not looking for the too aggressive assumption for the price on the coming years. We are looking for as a balanced solution for the technical solutions.
Of course. Talking about floating offshore wind energy, we've been hearing that that technology might be at a watershed. It might just about to reach the commercial stage. From your point of view, from an investor's point of view, is it now the moment where investors just invest without worries, or are you still a bit wary about that market?
You're right. Floating projects are the next frontier. There is more and more in development, but so far very few projects are in operation. So we are looking, from our point of view, because we are there only for not a long period of time on the lifetime of the project. We are there only for a certain period of time. So we need to be very careful about all the phase of a project, and very cautious about the risk associated. So far, as I mentioned, there is a few projects in operation. We have to take care about the construction schedules, where the condition of the construction, also the operation, because due to the fact the projects are very far away from the coast, is bringing more risk and more complexity to operate and to maintain. But however, floating projects bring advantage as well, because they are far away, the wind conditions are better, so a better load factor, and also the environmental impact of this project could be reduced as well, due to the fact they are not close to the border. So at the end, if I can resume myself, it is a very difficult equation to solve, and we are looking for the market to have more insight about all these phases of operation.
Thank you very much, Adriano, Tutello. Just as a quick reminder, you can ask questions right after this session. You just have to scan the QR code and put in your questions. The QR code is on the posters around the exhibition area and in our catalogue, obviously. Now, thank you for your patience. Dominika Taranko, you're Managing Director and Vice President of Poland's Industry Association Wind Industry Hub. Thank you for coming all this way. Is it working? No, it's not working.
Let's check. Yes,
yeah.
No, it's working.
No, it's working.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your wonderful work that you're doing from the early morning in moderating these discussions. It's a very hard work. It's difficult to describe Polish picture in 2-3 minutes. So I've prepared for you flyers with QR codes to some reports and like other information about the market. So if any one of you would be interested, we unfortunately don't have a stand for Polish offshore wind here during Seanergy this year, but maybe next year. And just to give a short introduction, I represent Polish Wind Energy Association, which is the largest sector organization in Poland, working for 25 years constantly on developing from scratch new sector. Wind Industry Hub, so the foundation where I have a leading role, was founded to support development of supply chain for offshore and onshore wind in Poland and inter alia to build international cooperation. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here.
All right. Well, Poland is indeed hitting the accelerator. I understand 11 gigawatt of offshore wind energy planned for 2040, and the supply chain is constructing numerous projects. You mentioned 2 Vestas factories, a Windar factory, installation ports that are arising. Is really everything being done to help this supply chain get off the ground? Or is there one element lacking?
It's actually extremely exciting process that we observe right now in Poland. You've mentioned 11 gigawatts. It has been updated lately for 18 gigawatts till 2040. Till 2030, we've got so-called first wave of offshore wind with 6 gigawatts of capacity in the network. And we, from 1 month to another, actually really observe how this offshore wind hub is growing. For last 12 months has been announced huge investments like 2 Vestas factories in Western Pomerania, Winder's factory for monopiles, another factory for monopiles from GRI Renewables together with Baltic Towers, a Polish company. We've got 2 installation ports under construction, 3 service ports. And finally, the first offshore wind project, Baltic Power, will be on operation in 2026. Final investment decision has been done in September last year. And it's an interesting case study because they've received a couple of awards for the financing construction of the project. So it's actually interesting that we are a huge testing polygon as a whole country, as we are just starting with offshore wind, but at the same time, this first project already gains awards and is seen as conducted very, very properly.
So I suppose you share the view of your fellow panelists that cost pressure is quite high in the sector, right? And other factors, are there other factors, other bottlenecks that you're encountering?
Cost pressure is enormous, but it was said previously during one of the sessions that let's imagine the cost if we won't do that. Poland is a particular position where our energy mix is very difficult to transform. As last year, 63% of energy came out of coal still. We have 27% coming from renewables, and the largest part comes from wind. And in terms of wind, it's very prospective market. Onshore, we have still space for around 30 gigawatts, offshore 33 gigawatts. But what we observe is that it all lasts too long. And this is one of the biggest challenges for this Baltic Power project, the first offshore wind project. The permitting process, development phase, it took 13 years. And if we want to speed up, scale up with the supply chain and with the projects, we need to facilitate all the permitting procedures, facilitate regulations, but also assure an equal portfolio of projects, not only in Poland, but in Europe. So I would say that to enable particular countries to develop their projects, we need a huge work on harmonization among European Union, because when we look at final investment decisions that has been already announced in Europe and auctions plans, in one years we've got particular years we've got these ups, and in some we've got downs. So for supply chain, it's extremely difficult to adjust with such portfolio of projects if it's not streamlined, and that would influence the costs decrease the most.
Right. Do you think that, from your perspective, the supply chain is, or the different supply chains in different countries are actively working together? Are you getting help from abroad in setting this up?
They should, and unfortunately, they're not yet actively working together. We need a lot of more work to be done. We talked about cables today. One of unique tier ones that we've got in Poland is Telefonica Cable, with factories in Poland, but also in Great Britain. They are a global player, and from yesterday's welcome party, I know that it's actually not a known player here in France, and we are missing many stands of Polish producers that might be interested for your market, but also we talk at Seanergy a lot about floating, which is actually not a part of focus in Poland, but we talk about R&D innovations. For this type of cooperation, Poland is a huge testing polygon. We are much industrial country. About 20% of our GDP comes from industry, so we never deindustrialized. But most of our industry branches are old-fashioned. They are not energy effective. They are missing R&D aspects. We do a lot of for competence centers, for education, but in terms of innovation, I see a lot of possibilities for cooperation between Polish and French companies.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. As I said, there is the possibility to ask some questions. We are running a bit behind time, but I have one question that I received regarding the national strategies. You were talking about cooperation between supply chains. Do you have all of you, do you have the impression that the different governments have come together, are actively working together to push for a common supply chain or more cooperation when it comes to the supply chain in the offshore renewable sector?
I still have a microphone, so if I can jump in,
and I will have one as well.
To you. European Union started discussion about industrial policy in 2019. In 2021, we had a final document. Starting from that moment, we observe documents that supplement the idea of reindustrialization of Europe in terms of net zero economy development. And I don't know how it is seen in France and how much you're doing about that, but definitely in Poland, we are missing our industrial strategy where we would have indicated priority areas which should be developed in Poland, but maybe in other parts of Europe we already have competences and already developed infrastructure that could be used to support our projects. So this is what we are working on a lot starting from last year to prepare such strategy of supply chain development that would see not only Polish market but also other markets in Europe, how they are growing, what they are focusing on, and to look for these synergies because without that we won't make so many capacities that we want to have in Europe. So it's like around 500 gigawatts till 2030. So in some segments of supply chain, we need to double it or triple. To do that, we need cooperation.
Yes, I think that as it was mentioned, there have been some strategies put in place at European level. Recently, is Net Zero Industrial Act. So this is clearly a structuring approach for the supply chain at European level. It's also, well, definitely much more efficient to incentivize for the offshore wind project the use of local supply chain at European level rather than at national level. So yes, definitely this is the right direction. And also we were talking about harbors earlier on. I think if we reflect around the perimeter of the Mediterranean basin, there is definitely a path forward that requires some coordination between the European countries. So I'm not sure this is in place yet, but hopefully the growth of the market will allow a coordination of the approach between different countries.
Okay, so there's still some leeway. Would one of you like to comment, or both of you?
Yeah, I was actually here while we were with a port collaboration. We have a port alliance with 7 ports around the North Sea. And there we share a strategy in order to meet, let's say, the European target in the renewables. So it's not about separate countries, it's not about ports separately, but it's a joint strategy. And it's of course not on commercial base, but it's on infrastructure, on nautical issues, on geotechnical issues. And there you can learn from each other and try to share, because there is more capacity needed than the joint ports can offer. So it's a joint message.
And would you agree with that?
Last point. I agree with all the other speakers said. Just the only difficulties is how this strategy, open strategy, is developed in every country, especially in France, when we saw the political situation currently ongoing.
A bit complicated, yes. Well, thank you very much. We will have to leave it at that. Thank you, and thank you for listening.